morning, everyone. So I spend a lot of time in the Hawaiian Islands, and when a speaker says aloha, everyone responds aloha. So I'm going to do the same. Good morning. How is everyone? Wonderful. Today we have a panel, as the MC mentioned, on impact through technology. Really excited about it. We live in a very opportune time, and as Pioneers' CEO Oliver Sende said yesterday, we have an opportunity to make a huge difference in the lives of many. And technology enables us to do that in a very important way. It enables us to catalyze and amplify and do things in very beautiful ways. So we have two speakers, our esteemed guests. They are evangelists to promote the beauty of impact. My name is Nikki Eberhardt, as you know, and I'm a sociologist but trained in business. I do work with impact. I work with Global Citizen, among many other organizations, and we work with powerful partnerships utilizing technology to enable this change that we're trying to drive. So our esteemed guests are Thimo Schmitt-Lord and Marc Buckley. Let's welcome them to the stage.
Hi, Nikki.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you, Nikki.
Welcome.
Got to get a selfie real quick of everybody.
Oh, I join you.
Okay. There we go.
Wonderful. So, gentlemen, I would like you each to introduce yourselves. Tell us a bit about what you do and how it drives impact innovation. Marc, let's start with you.
I'm Marc Buckley. I'm a United Nations SDG advocate and an expert network for the World Economic Forum. I'm one of the climate leaders that was trained by Al Gore as a climate speaker and climate leader, and so I kind of have this grander mission to travel around the world and tell people about innovations and climate change and environment and how they all tie together, and kind of put the SDGs in a better perspective, one that we haven't heard before. For me personally, I came to this mission many, many years ago where I was overweight. I weighed about 350 American pounds. I lived in a 10,000 square foot condo and kind of had a big carbon footprint. I didn't care much about the environment. I didn't care much about my health. Because of my weight, I really was desensitized and couldn't feel myself, and came to an enlightenment and a mind shift for me personally, which now I'm realizing is more of a transformation. It's actually a paradigm shift that I've personally taken in my life, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, about systems and complexity and transformation and how impact innovations help with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Thimo Schmitt-Lord. I'm heading the Bayer Foundations, so I'm actually organizing, literally we do impact investment, so we give money to people who turn money into innovations that matters. So we support, or you can say we are the partners of the pioneers who are working on the challenges of humanity in health and food and innovating for developing the lives of the billions. That's actually what we are doing.
Fantastic. So, Marc, I'll return to you. You shared this powerful personal story, and I think each of us has some sort of inflection point, some sort of narrative that we each tell that drives us to do what we do, that drives us to start these businesses as entrepreneurs and invest in the things that matter and the technologies that matter. So, Marc, with your story, there's a lot of inspiration that comes from that. I'm curious, you say that you have an Earth mission, and you relate it to the SDGs, which is an acronym for the Sustainable Development Goals. Marc, if you could briefly speak to what the SDGs are and how that relates to technological solutions.
So in the past, our world's kind of taken a real siloed or linear approach to the world. Humans are linear and lateral thinkers. And if you know about the United Nations SDG goals, they're laid out 1 through 17 very linear. And my mission is more or less to explain to people how to view the SDGs and how to understand them better and apply them into their life. What it is it's a planet protection plan. It's a goal for 2030 so that we remain below 1.5 degrees of warming. And these 17 goals are very inclusive, very wide-reaching, that will help protect our planet. But they're all tied to agriculture, food, and beverage. All 17 of the United Nations goals are tied to agriculture, food, and beverage. And if you've ever heard about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basis of Maslow's pyramid is food, water, breathing, homeostasis, sex, and excretion. Food, water, breathing, that's the basis of all human needs. And that's how the SDGs should be viewed, that they're tied to the basic needs of humanity, and that they're a system, a complex system that we can evolve in our business models. And innovation is probably one of the key factors to make that exponential growth to reach the goal by 2030.
Fantastic. And we'll get to some of these technological solutions to tackling some of these issues associated around what you just mentioned. Thimo, I want to ask you, you inspire and fund technology pioneers who dedicate passion and innovative spirit to solve global issues. And you've been quoted to say, if you want to start a billionaire, to be a startup billionaire, you have to solve a billion problems. Can you please speak to that? What does that mean, and how does that affect our audience?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you go, maybe not with Pioneers, I mean, the Pioneers Festival always had a focus on people who innovate for a higher purpose. But when you speak with startups or when you go to incubators, what you often see is like a lot of copycats. People who actually think about, oh, what could we do? How could we, like, I don't know, make a good business out of this and that? And then you see the development just of a next food delivery service or another dating app or another, I don't know, optoelectronic device for opening cars more smart, right? Things you don't really need. So, and I always think like, hey, what a waste of time and resources. Why don't we focus our energy on applying the technology to challenges that are really existing and that could actually turn society into a better place for the billions. And I personally, I believe the bigger the challenge is, the more sophisticated the innovation must be to solve it. But at the same time, the bigger the opportunities are to make also a business out of it. Yeah? And then that's the quote, what it's all about. If you want to be a startup billionaire, what a lot of startups would love to be, then you have to solve billions of people's problems. These are the big opportunities, and if you want to do that, you should not stay in Silicon Valley. You should go out to where the billions of people are, and they are just not living in the US, nor do they live in Europe. They are living in Africa, in Southeast Asia, in India, in China. They are the billions, and they are the big market opportunities. At the same time, you can change society by applying tech in a different way. And I have one example. I was just talking about these optoelectronic car opening devices. This is probably nice, but not really needed, right? There's a guy we support in Uganda at the moment. He is actually applying optoelectronics to create a non-invasive malaria testing device. Probably people think, oh, do we need that? Yes, we do, because malaria is a disease you could super easy treat when you detect early. These malaria death cases occur because the people just don't know that they have malaria, and they detect much too late, and then there's no cure anymore. So if you would detect malaria early on, then the treatment is not such a big deal. The thing is, the people in Africa just cannot afford this blood test, costs $1.80 or $2. They can't afford to do that every second or third week. And this guy in Uganda has developed this optoelectronic device where you put the finger inside, and it can actually tell you without a needle stitch if you have malaria or not. So you could actually easily do like mass screening without any costs involved whatsoever. And this, to me, is the application of a proven tech to an unsolved medical need. And these are the projects we are supporting.
Can I just interject one thing real quick?
All right, thanks.
I agree.
The thing is, when I finish, can I finish this? The thing is, we as a foundation, we are just only a bank account, right? If we don't find these innovators to actually create these devices, we couldn't do anything. So all the appreciation must really go to the pioneers who are actually doing the work. And these are showcased in our book, The Beauty of Impact. So if you want to get inspired, just see us at our booth later and pick up a copy of the book. And if you want to invest in these, because we only do bridge funding in the foundation, then also approach us. We are always looking for bringing these innovators to a stage of proven tech, so that then people who would love to really become stakeholders in it can invest bigger tickets and to scale them out into larger markets. So
Well, two comments. One, Thimo just spoke about the billions. Well, there's another side of that I want to explain to you just shortly. Our world's growing exponentially around us with exponential problems, all sorts of climate catastrophes and health problems and issues out there. And that's why it's so important for impact innovations. And if you want to be a startup billionaire or an impact innovator, you have to come up with something that's going to reach the millions and billions to combat the negative things that we're seeing in our world. If you just come up with something very small that has no reach or is a new delivery app, it's not having that social impact. And that's why that's so vital to what he said. This year's book that Thimo also presented is the other thing, is called The Beauty of Impact Food. It's based on food-based innovations. I'm extremely proud of that as well, because it's printed on rock paper in a sustainable printing facility with zero carbon footprint, with organic inks. It's waterproof. Rock paper feels like silk, and it's jam-packed full of food innovations that are changing the world, that are addressing billions of people's problems and needs. And so those are two things with this reach.
There's one example in the new book we have scouted already as a startup from London in the UK, and I really showcase this because I love it. This thing is, overfishing is a massive issue in the oceans, right? But who knows that actually the unwanted bycatch is a big burden in this issue. And there's this startup, they are creating lightning devices by which they can actually, they stick them to fisher nets, and they can do smart selective fishing with it, because every fish species has a specific light spectrum to which it is attracted. And by turning the fisher net into a specific light spectrum, only the fish swims into the net that you want to catch, and all the other fish will not swim into the nets. So you can avoid like 20, 30 million tons of fish of unwanted bycatch every year by applying this smart technology. And these are like tech innovations I love, because everyone is like thinking about, oh, how can we actually reduce the overfishing? Maybe we eat less fish, but that will not really work out, right? No one thinks about how can we do fishing more smart by applying a technology based on a biological finding that is decades old. In the 60s, a biology professor found out about these specific light spectrum sensitivity of fish, but no one cared about. In the 60s of the last century, no one really wanted to think about overfishing, so it actually ended up in a ruler for decades. And then these two engineers from London looked it up in an old Nature paper and came up with this crazy cool invention out of it. And that is really like also a play that it is worth to look into old scientific findings that have been made like decades ago, but no one really take any advantage out of it.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So this provides an amazing illustration of exactly what you're saying, which is identifying the global problems, finding something that has scalability, that can impact millions or billions, being proximate, right, to the issues, and then pursuing the solutions from there. Can you speak more to specific technological innovations and maybe a few other illustrations of what is being done around the world that again speaks more to addressing these challenges, addressing the SDGs in these powerful ways?
Go ahead.
I think the thing is, you can innovate in whatever you do. And there are so many, I would call them actually niches, but in the end, the group of people who have the same issue is then large again, right? There's one guy, for instance, in the US, in the UK again, he has actually developed a scalp cooling device to cool down the hair follicles so that you would not lose the hair during cancer chemotherapy, which is quite very important psychologically, yeah? Because losing hair, particularly for women, is very stigmatizing. He developed because they had a refrigerator company in the family, and then the mother developed breast cancer, and he turned the refrigerator technology into this scalp cooling technology. And now he received FDA approval and can actually sell the device in the biggest health market of the world. So it's really like an innovation born out of a private dilemma or challenge situation that is now actually scaled out into the biggest health market, and it's good business as well. Much better than the refrigerator business was before.
We're seeing that all over the world. Is basically the world's biggest business opportunities are the world's biggest problems. But we're also seeing that those innovators that are coming along are ones that are directly impacted somehow. They have a relative or someone in the family, or they themselves have somehow been affected, and they've culturally and locally come up with an innovation that can address a much bigger problem. Those are some of the best innovators that we found, and then some just practicing professionals that have seen some gaping holes in their business or in their needs for their clients, their customers, their patients, and where they've come up with a good innovation like that.
Yeah, isn't that fantastic in terms of just something that resonates with that individual, starts from there. And these are players you find in all industries, don't we?
Yes.
Across business, nonprofit, all through civil society, corporates.
A lot of things actually we are not aware of or we don't want to see. When you look, for instance, into access to medicine as a topic, everyone is talking about access to medicine. How can we actually create better access to medicine for the poor people in the developing world? The thing is, as long as the finance market demands from the pharma industry like an industry margin of 20–25%, it's just not possible to sell the drugs for such a low price, even if you could produce them for such price. So the perspective on the margin expectations is wrong. When you want to have access to medicine realized in the developing world. On other issue, it's also connected to fintech, is the physician recently told me from Sri Lanka, there is no access to medicine problem from a technical point of view. They could actually apply all the medication to the people who are queuing up in this hospital. The thing is, the people can't pay out of the pocket because they don't have any health insurance and they don't have the money to pay for it. And that's then actually creating a lot of problems, like 150 million people in the world cannot afford a pair of eyeglasses because they just cannot pay out of the pocket. Or these millions of unnecessary cases of blindness in India, for instance, just because the people cannot actually afford for an easy eye treatment for an infection or whatsoever. So all these things are connected actually to fintech, and I'm really waiting for a cool blockchain actually solution who is actually creating access to financing health services to the poor people all around the world. That will be like a crazy cool invention.
That's another thing. So we're waiting for this fintech to come, but we're also seeing other innovators create $1 eyeglasses through innovation and vending tools to create $1 eyeglasses for those people who don't have the insurance to still make it be affordable to get, because now the innovators and those in need are finding solutions to get around the political and the poor infrastructure problems that are created wherever they're at in the world to still have those healthcare needs or those nutritional needs that they need to survive.
Yeah. These innovators are so creative, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm curious, you both fund social innovation. How are you scouting for these innovators? Where are you finding them? And for our audience, many of whom are probably seeking some sort of investment, what advice would you provide to them?
We do a lot. So we do about 42 events a year. We travel all over, try to reach the innovators and the startups at events like Pioneers, at other events, because they're already in that mindset. They're already trying to develop stuff. And then the word kind of spreads very organically that they hear about the monies that we give out. And it's a $50 million a year for the Buyer Cares Foundation. And so Thimo can maybe tell you a little bit more about those events and how else we scout.
I mean, literally, it's a bit of coincidence also. So we walk around, we have a look, we meet a lot of people, we talk to a lot of people, and then we find these. Scouting is the biggest issue in impact investment, right? It's not about money. There is so much money available. We as a foundation, we give out 50 million euros every year since 1897. That sums up like to about 2.5 billion euros we made available over these decades of time. Sounds like a big chunk of money, but there's this WHO study saying that with 2.5 billion euros, you can feed the population of Africa just for 2 weeks. So, I mean, to me, that showcases that with money, you will not achieve anything with money alone. You need the innovations. So this scouting for us is actually the most important thing we do. Therefore, we are traveling, we are talking, we let the people present ideas, and we are humbled by these people to let us actually joining them with our money to help them to scale up, because for these ideas that are showcased in the book, I believe they would find supporters everywhere, right? Because they are so good and they have such an outlook of impact they can create. So we don't have this set of KPIs. We look into compelling ideas. Like the book says, the beauty of the innovation needs to convince us. And the challenge must be big, the societal issue must be big, and the solution must be breathtaking and the potential to disrupt the way how things have been done before. Then we are in.
Just one thing to add to that. So the book has 17 impact innovations in it, and all of them address just under 3 billion people's problems. But people have more than one problem. So it sounds like a big number. Just like Thimo said, 2-point-something billion can feed Africa for 2 weeks. We need to put that math and those numbers into perspective, that really we could have 100,000 impact innovations, and then we would be starting to scratch the surface or make a dent in the problem as far as population and the problems go in our world. And we actually struggle to find enough impact innovations, and there's not really a big competition or market. There's a lot of copycats as far as people coming up with a new delivery app or something in the market where they just copy it. But we actually think that there could be thousands of $1 eyeglass companies out there to address the needs of all the people who have that. And so there's just not enough good impact innovators out there in the market. It's hard to find them.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, when we scouted the first project, is discovering hence the blind woman in medical tactile examinations. They find tumors 9 months earlier than a physician because of their delicate touch, and it turns a handicap into a gift for society. So when we started with this project a couple of years back with impact investment, I thought like, oh, fuck, that's it. We will never find something this good ever again, all right? So grab it and go, kind of. But then we started to like look deeper into it, and now really like, you know, we have a lineup of 40, 50 innovators of this quality level, and all this question of impact is of increasing importance. I meet so many people who say like, the most important to me is to answer the question why I am doing it. So what's the purpose of me to innovate? So this whole perception is about to change. And when the message then on top is, yeah, and if you have this crazy cool purpose idea, then you have a good market potential as well, then even more people will go into this, will jump into it. And I always say like, hey, act like an activist, think like a scientist. Yeah? And that is our motivation as well, so that we can create social fiction together, not science fiction, like that we apply technology to solve the challenges of humanity instead of like, I don't know, going to the moon and try to grow vegetables on the moon, which is not really necessary because we have enough opportunities still left on the earth to make farming better.
I will ask you, we're going to open up for a short Q&A shortly, so if you'd go to Slido and use the hashtag Pioneers'18, please pose any questions you have, and we'll absolutely get to those. Any last thoughts in terms of social innovation? A specific advice you mentioned to the entrepreneurs in the audience. What about to the investors in the audience? If they want to make an important pivot or a shift into focusing money and focusing energy on technological solutions, what would you suggest they do? How do they make that shift?
First of all, I would say there is no social innovation. That's a misleading terminology. There is innovation that helps society to progress and to prosper. That, to me, is the thing at least we are focusing on. And because social gives this touch of like, it's not important, it's helping, we are not the angel of the poor, we are the partners of the pioneers. So, and I think societal impact is of increasing importance to investors as well. Instead of looking also into financial KPIs, it's important to think about what purpose is it creating, because that gives you the freedom to operate.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, let's get to a question here. Which area of innovation in the future will bring the most benefit for humankind?
We don't know the future, right? I mean,
The only way to know the future is to create it. So, or to predict the future is to create the future you want. And so I see a very desirable future, but it's one that we need to be very active in. So in the last few years, there's been this systems view change of the world. And this year in January, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, came out with these transformational maps and showing how everything's kind of interconnected. That means that we're also interconnected into this system, and we should create the desirable future which we want to live in. And for me personally, it's not one to live in a suit with an oxygen mask or with gray skies. I would like to enjoy beautiful weather and climate like here in Austria or in other wonderful places of the world. You started this talk out with aloha and alohas, welcome. But for me, aloha stands for an adaptive lifestyle of health and sustainability. What more of a desirable future than that? And the SDGs have a manifesto that is this utopian desirable future that we can reach by 2030. Let's embrace it.
Yeah, fantastic, and it's going to take all of us. As I mentioned, I do work with Global Citizen, and it's a huge advocacy and fundraising mechanism to end extreme poverty. Last year on the Global Citizen stage, we had huge celebrities, 65,000 people at Central Park, and raised billions of dollars to end extreme poverty. And at one point, I took a celebrity front of stage. I looked out at the audience, and I had this aha moment. I thought, what has it taken to bring all of these players together to make change? It took each of us in our respective spheres making a difference, innovating, thinking creatively, being proximate to these issues in order to make this happen. And I would challenge each of us to engage in this, take it personally. Associate this with our personal stories and what drives us to do good, and think about how our technological innovations can help the world's poor. Let's get to one more question, and then we'll wrap up. Why do most good inventions that could change the world for better but are not scalable are not funded at all?
which question is that?
That's the third, yeah, there it is, up top.
I don't know. Why is it not scalable then? I mean, if you have a crazy innovation and you have really a big challenge, then this question doesn't make any sense, because then it is scalable. If it is not scalable, maybe it's a niche. If it is a niche, then it's a different story, right? Because then you will never really reach the billions, because it's a niche.
So what you're looking for is the scalable solutions, right, that can affect the billions, as you earlier mentioned.
The scalability comes not from the restriction of financing opportunities, because for good ideas and good opportunities, there's always finance opportunity available, I believe. The limited scalability comes either from limited resources you may need to actually scale up the innovation, Or it may come from a limited need. Yeah? Maybe there's not such a big challenge for this innovation. It's a niche, and then you can't scale it.
What Thimo means by niche, I think, is more the siloed approach. It's more of one facet. We need innovations that are complex. They're systems model. They're a dynamic business model that can be scaled. Those are usually innovations that have thought out the problems. They had an issue with insurance. They created $1 eyeglasses to get around the insurance probably and
but they can scale. I'll give you a better example. Yeah. Discovering hands, for instance, blind woman in medical tactile examinations. We thought it's a crazy idea. Yeah, let the blind woman do all the breast cancer screening. But then we found out in Germany there are just not enough blind women to replace all the mammography. So this can never scale up to a level you would need it to actually replace the old technology. And that's then the limit for scalability.
Oh, fantastic. Looks like we're nearly out of time. Last thoughts, Marc, on impact through technology.
Impact through technology, I would say that our number one way where we're going to stop and reverse global warming, which is, I believe, a place where impact technology or impact innovations can come in, is to globally solve or reform food, actually change and reform our entire food system because it's broken. Agriculture is the world's oldest economy, 12,000 years old, and it is broken, and it's creating a lot more problems than the oil, gas, and coal industry is, and so I would like to see more innovations around food and this global food reform, and the best ones are technical impact innovations.
Exciting. More innovations around the food issues. And it's interesting how you come from an abundance perspective as opposed to a scarcity perspective. I like that. Thimo, last thoughts?
I think the whole world is created out of this ambition to go into the new, to innovate. That's the nature of human beings. So, and that will not stop anyway. So the question is only, why are we innovating, for which purpose? To me, it would be always like the most important question. When I would start to innovate, I would start a business, I would ask myself why I'm doing it.
Why you're doing it, yeah. What is the purpose? That's beautiful. Nice way to end. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of your time. Check out what both of these guys are doing. It's pretty important work in this space. And again, challenge you all to become more involved in applying your technological solutions to the biggest problems of our day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.